Friends, hello. Just listen. How he spoke. The music didn't play for long, Rurik danced for long. The great geostrategist spilled out in front of Trump. He is a courageous man, that's clear. What he does inside the country, what he does in the sphere, say, of the situation in the Middle East and his efforts to resolve the Ukrainian crisis. Of course, we all appreciate it very much. And I have already said this, I want to say it publicly and now. A courageous man, very courageous. At least he doesn't hide in bunkers. He achieved everything himself. He didn't steal. And he didn't just get into power as some gray ma. And in fact, if you think about it, he is a truly elected president. But that's not the point. How the show-offs beat. How the fingers bent. And now these are the songs that are being sung. Trump bombed Iran, Putin's strategic ally. Then he posted a mocking song on the internet, which sings about bombing Iran, with lyrics like, "Let's make a parking lot out of Iran," and this one praises it. Now, Iran won't even believe this statement right away. After all, such an ally. By the way, at the same press approach he started playing the hurdy-gurdy again. How did they screw him? And how did it all start? With the fact that they cheated us, rudely deceived us, as they say among us. They simply screwed us over NATO's non-expansion to the east. They cheated us, they simply screwed us. And also, among the common people, as they say among us, who usually get screwed. Yes, there is one nuance. The person who is constantly screwed is called, well, write in the comments. I hope the site won't delete it. But in general, to be fair, no one promised him anything. And there is not a single written document. If someone somewhere told someone in a bathhouse, no, that's it, bro. Yeah, we're definitely not expanding, then it doesn't mean anything at all. Grandpa just has his own reality. Not only that, even his buddies are screwing him. The head of the SVR, Naryshkin, openly stated that Fraternal Serbia has already stabbed him in the back and is supplying weapons to Ukraine with all its might. Yes, indeed, today we made public the information we received that, through an enterprise in a number of other countries, products manufactured in Serbia, products of military significance are being supplied to Ukraine. That's true. And Vasco listens to the report. They cheated, brazenly deceived, simply screwed him. And Iran looked at all this and waved its hand. Iran decided to buy Chinese fighters instead of Russian ones. The media writes that Iran has intensified negotiations with China on the purchase of G-10 fighters after Israel's operation. Israeli pilots flew in the skies of Iran as if they were at home. But it is also easy to guess why Iran has decided to buy fighter jets from China now. Now listen to this. Assess the level of Putin's diplomacy. But, unfortunately, the chief of the General Staff of Israel, Mr. Zamir, in my opinion, without justifying his name, said that while the ceasefire is in effect now, this is primarily because it is necessary to finish what was started with regard to Hamas. Russia's face on the international stage looks like this. Diplomacy at the level of a St. Petersburg back alley. Oh, ha ha ha, what a funny name. For peace, and for peace, it turns out, it is not for peace, right? And in Russia, for such a name, they can generally put you in jail. God, what a joke. I hit my leg with my hand. That's how it is, guys. These people represent the country on our behalf. Of course, you can't judge a face by its appearance, but in this case, that's it. To peck at fried potatoes. And then comes the news from the series. I would never have believed it if I hadn't known how the system works. A photographer from Perm was sentenced to 16 years in prison for state change. Do you know why? For passing a book about Soviet bunkers to the Americans. Do you know what the nuance is? I'll tell you right now, and you'll get it. Go ahead. Grigory Skvortsov was given 16 years for passing scans, monographs, and secret Soviet bunkers to an American journalist, Matt Schwartz. And this book is freely sold in stores, and its cover has a stamp with the inscription declassified. Yes, you got it right. The guy was given a term for a book that can be freely found on the internet and bought or even simply downloaded. As a child, I read a wonderful book about the sailor Rutherford. If I'm not mistaken, the author was Tchaikovsky, but not Korney, but Nikolai. However, that's not the point. There the sailor survived among cannibals. I could not even imagine that in a couple of decades we ourselves would be living among cannibals. Well, there is a nuance. Residents of the Kursk region met with Kinstein. They openly told him to his face that this vaunted help to people is pennies. And this is what came of it. You talk about 65,000 payments. But these are pennies, what people lost. But I do not count just one house, but the entire building, the entire farm. But someone lost how many cars? If your farm was lost, wasted, it was registered. If you had an excess farm, if you had agricultural machinery, if you had cattle and it was all registered, you will be compensated for all of this. If you were not registered, then it will not be compensated. Compensates. Compensates. Who compensates? Yes, this is a difficult issue. You consider 65,000 rubles per person pennies. How much have we lost? Pennies. These are pennies, of course. I think that for some people this is not a penny. For some people who lived in huts, and for some who had farms and houses, excuse me, you can't buy such a house for that now. Perhaps, I just assume, city dwellers will not understand what is behind this, and now I will try to explain. When people live in the village and something flies into their house, they lose not only the house. Just imagine, they moved out of there. They have some kind of equipment there. And what else could be included in this? Something that you do not register. Let's say a plow, a rake, maybe a baler, elementary some buildings, baths, garages, walk-behind tractors, saws, scythes. The list can be very long. All this is quite expensive. Now, try to buy a normal walk-behind tractor. It costs a little more than a lot, and no one will compensate them for it. We do not abandon our own, firmly and clearly. So what? Amazing news. In Anapa, they started demanding receipts from tourists. I am familiar with the fuel oil. I will not swim. In order to protect our guests, children and, possibly, guests who come to us and are a little frivolous about this threat to their health. We are not equipping the beaches with sun loungers at all this year. In order to provide information to guests in an even more focused manner, we have added a questionnaire for the stay at the reception for guests, in which the guest records his, consent to the processing of data, and so on. In the 13th point, we also inform guests that it is prohibited to be on the beaches and that swimming is dangerous to health. Of course, Russia has the best education in the world, but the Putrid telephones squeal and climb, because after all, everything has been paid for, so we have to demand receipts. And in Tumen, there is a real movement. There, a gypsy community illegally connected to a gas pipeline and accumulated debts of 4 million. When workers arrived to remove the taps, they started attacking them with sawed-off shotguns and pitchforks. At the same time, extremely expensive foreign cars were found on the territory of the gypsy baron's house. There was a Toyota Camry and a Mercedes GLS. People know how to live in grand style. Of course, everyone is equal in Russia, but some are a little more equal. And one more piece of news, simply amazing. Remember, Guest K said that about 60,000 Russians sign a contract per month. There is simply no end to the military registration and enlistment offices. The lines are kilometer long. Meanwhile, in Transbaikalia, theater, museum, and library workers were forced to go to Ukraine to agitate. Moreover, they were forced to agitate not only on the streets, but also on social networks. And for refusing to agitate, sanctions. And soon they will be forced to go and hand out leaflets. There is no serfdom in Russia.